All right. Well, I mean, the news that the whole world is talking about and that no one can ignore this morning, and I think for good reason, is the death yesterday of Queen Elizabeth II, who really has been witness to 70 years of unbelievable change on the planet, and I think did a singularly good job of stewarding us into a new century and of helping people who wanted to maintain some foothold on tradition and on the past, helping those people to deal with an uncertain future. And there are things about tradition which and history which make that kind of role especially important. And to people who don't understand that because they perhaps don't have a care or appreciation for tradition and history, well, for those people, all of the things that you will see in the next few months as a result of this one woman's death will seem ridiculous and will seem outrageous and will seem unnecessary and archaic and silly. I have to tell you that there is a part of me that thinks monarchy is ridiculous. If you examine it on its face and with regard to how systems of government have improved over the years and how we've become better at managing realms and countries and sovereignties, then it does look silly. But there is something also, an equal part of me, which clings to tradition, has a respect for history, realizes that the answers that we think we are now so good at providing will look equally stupid to generations that come after us. And the only way that we will maintain any kind of dignity, if the future is to look back on us kindly and generously, is if we are equally respectful and equally generous to that which came before us. There is always a place in this world for people who honor tradition, people who create and maintain and carry culture forward. And the British monarchy is one of the few surviving institutions in the world, and there really are only a few of them, that can harken back to 1,000 years or more of history and can claim and can lay claim to stories that are so intricate and interwoven that not even a Tolkien or a J.K. Rowling could write them. In fact, they are the basis so often of how we explore the past, how we try to contrive a future. And it is sad. I personally can't tell you that I'm emotionally devastated by the death of the Queen. I think that is something that perhaps her closest family can say with confidence and honesty and sincerity. But I still feel that we finally said goodbye to an extraordinary generation, a generation that guided us through an enormous and devastating and globe-changing, history-writing war, the Second World War, and what the Queen and her parents managed to do for a nation which was at that stage still a world superpower was nothing short of heroic. And yes, a lot of people say, well, standing on a balcony and waving is not heroic. Well, you know what? The people who grew up around the Queen and the people of her generation would beg to differ. And I always say, just like I do to anyone who has, modern ideas, don't look back and criticize people who came before you because you think that they're backward and archaic and silly. Unless you're absolutely sure that what you're doing isn't going to look archaic and stupid and silly when people in 100 years from now look at us. It's sort of like when you walk into someone's house and everything's very modern. It can look very nice. It can be very stylish. It can be very en vogue. It can be very impressive. It can be up to date and innovative and very clever and expensive even. That can be impressive to people. But if you walk into someone's house and you see a cabinet that has been in the possession of that family for 400 years, or you see a threadbare carpet that was once walked over by, you know, great statesmen of the 1700s, then I think there's a level of basic humility and respect that should kick in, unless you're the kind of person who really has no respect for any institutions. And we can see those people all over the world today. It's not hard to find them. They're usually terrific underachievers of their own, um, by their own measure, by the measure of everyone around them. And they're not the kind of people who have respect for anything, including themselves, usually. I'm paying as little attention as I possibly can to the attention seeking sort of people who will use the death of anybody to make it about them and will try to gather for themselves as much of the spotlight as they possibly can in a moment of triumph or tragedy. And there are lots of those people on the internet these days. We have to see them more than we might have when they were just on the street hollering from a soapbox on the corner of two roads with a cup jingling and jangling some coins and hoping for some attention. And now we have to hear them and see them on the internet. So I'm not going to give them much more attention than in that sentence I just completed. But I do think that the death of the Queen is symbolic, and it is the end of an era, and a mighty tree has fallen. And that tree is not just a person, it is tradition, and it is history. And it is now the job of the succeeding generation to continue that. So we'll see what happens. But to pretend that this doesn't mean anything makes you a very, very silly, very vacuous, very suspicious person.